Hi everyone, this is Lauren coming at you with the Break Zone with another video, this one regarding the Ice Earth deck that Matthew Okimoto piloted to win the ARG Circuit Summoner Series Ifrit event in Las Vegas. It focuses actually on being able to take on lightning actually. It is very well set up to do so. There are certain key cards that enable it to do that, and one of them being Vanille. What happens is if you take on lightning, then you worry about the offset combo. Vanille handles that really well. The fact that she is a 4 Earth CP forward, that when Vanille is put in from the field into the break zone, search for one card named Hecatoncheir and remove it from the game. If you do so, return Vanille onto the field duel at 7,000 power. So normally what happens is when you're playing against Lightning, you're worried about Al Cid. If Al Cid comes down, takes out your first active forward, then you're put on the back foot because you lose your forward, you spend resources on. They have two forwards. They could come at you with two damage unless you put another forward into play. That's a pretty big tempo boost early on, and normally they could follow that up with more break effects and thus kind of start piling on that early mid game damage. Vanille actually comes out to be larger than each part of the standard Al Cid package, which would be Al Cid, Onion Knight, and Rydia, each of them coming out at respective 6,000 power for the first two and 5,000 power for the last one. So if they were to do that, she would still still stay in play, and if they were to attack, you would be more than willing to have them lose a forward so that Vanille will just search for another Hecatoncheir and stay in play. Next card that actually helps you with your game plan against Lightning is Dadaluma. So Dadaluma is a 4 Earth CP forward. When Dadaluma is chosen by your opponent's summons or abilities, choose up to one forward opponent controls, deal it 4,000 damage. When Dadaluma is dealt damage, choose up to one forward opponent controls, deal it 4,000 damage, 8,000 power. So if Al Cid, Onion Knight, and Rigdia, any wish combination, were to target Luma, he would break them because it would target and damage him. So they would actually spend more resources trying to break your Luma through Al Cid combos than you would have spent to actually play out Luma. Pretty big advantage, and I mean by himself, Luma is on curve and actually takes on forwards larger than himself on both attack and defense. Gippal helps you with the mid to late game. So one of the things that this that is a feature of this deck is that it does not have any kind of plus 1,000 power backups, and Gippal would actually help your forwards get big enough to get over some of the other blockers your opponent might have. Also, the fact that he's EX and is at 4 CP really helps you out because you play 3 Devouts, and that's actually one of the key parts of this deck. Genesis, also 4 CP. So if you're not familiar with him, 4 ICP forward. When Genesis enters the field, choose one forward opponent controls, dull it, and freeze it. When Genesis deals damage to your opponent discards one card from his or her hand. 7,000 power. Early, mid game, or even late game, Genesis always has applications, whether you just play him or if you actually are able to deal your opponent damage with him. The disruption that he causes by discarding your opponent a card from your opponent's hand is uh, really helpful against people that try to play that card economy game. And the fact that when he comes into play, when he enters the field, he can dull and freeze a forward is actually very helpful at times when you're trying to get in that last couple of damage. Setzer is part of the FF6 package. 5 ICP forward. When Setzer enters the field, you may search for one Category 6 character and add it to your hand. When Setzer is put from the field into the break zone, choose one forward opponent controls, dull it, and freeze it, 7,000 power. So when you put it all together, he is a huge value card. Um, the fact that he searches for a character, not just a forward, means that he can actually search out for the backup Cid in order to search out for more FF64s after the fact, such as Locke or Celes. And also, so the fact that he gets you a card into your hand means that he's technically a 3 CP 7000 power forward that when he is put into the break zone, dull and freezes a character forward. That is a lot of value out of one card. Vayne, really good card against people trying to play big on you. So if somebody were to play, let's say, Delita or Emperor Zende, he's very helpful. He comes out at a 4 ICP forward. The forwards of cost 5 or more your opponent controls won't activate at the controller's active turn. When Vayne enters the field, dull all the forwards of cost 5 or more opponent controls. His special is Force of Will, 2 ICP and itself, freeze all the forwards opponent controls, and he's on curve at 8,000 power. If you haven't seen the trend quite yet, 4 CP works with Devout. So he, if your opponent were to spend resources trying to break him, unless they remove him from the game, he's most likely going to come back with the Devout if you really want him to be there. Hecatoncheir. There's actually 2 different versions. I'm actually just showing you this one. 2 Earth CP summon. Choose 1 forward you control and 1 forward opponent controls. Each forward deals damage equal to its power to the other. This card works well with just any forward that's bigger than your opponent's, but in particular, Dadaluma and Vanille really like this card. Dadaluma being that if he is damaged, he will be able to deal more damage on top. So if you wanted to trade a Dadaluma against a big guy that they're unwilling to sacrifice, Hecatoncheir will actually allow you to deal 12,000 damage to a forward. The first one being the 8,000 damage from the Hecatoncheir and Dadaluma, and Luma's ability that when he's damaged by your opponent's forward to actually trigger another 4,000 damage will actually help you do trade up. With Vanille, you don't mind her trading herself away with another 7,000 power forward because you can actually bring her back from the break zone to the field dull if you were to search out another copy of Hecatoncheir and remove it from the game. And the fact that you're relying on Hecatoncheir to be in your deck to be able to use that vanilla ability is another reason why you want to have a decent amount of them. And this deck actually uses 3 copies of each of the versions of Hecatoncheir. Devout, key part of this deck in my opinion. 4 ICP backup. Dull and put Devout into the break zone. Choose 1 forward of cost 4 or less from your break zone. Play it onto the field. You can only use this ability during your turns. So, works with Gippal, works with Genesis, Vanille, Celes, Vayne, like just pretty much most of your deck actually. So, yeah, the thing you have to worry about though is if they start playing an Emperor, your Devout will no longer be able to be used until you get rid of that Emperor. This deck features a lot of searchers. I'm just going to go over a couple of them. One of them being Mog 13-2. 3 ICP backup. When Mog 13-2 enters the field, you may search for 1 category 13 forward and add it to your hand. Some of the key ones you would want to look for would be Vanille against Lightning, and Vayne against if your opponent plays forwards of 5 CP or more. And last but not least, Gestahlian Empire Cid. 3 ICP backup. When Gestahlian Empire Cid enters the field, you may search for 1 category 6 forward and add it to your hand. Something to keep in mind is that he works well with, Final Fantasy VI, but also one of the cards that you have is Locke. So if you go from Setzer to Cid to Locke, Locke will actually look for check for 2 category 6 characters, and so Cid being there will actually help it trigger that discarding effect. Hopefully, uh, this will help you. This video will help you out if your meta is kind of rampant with a lot of lightning decks, and uh, if you're gonna attend Petite Cup, hopefully you'll be able to play this deck, put it through the gauntlet, and test it out so that if you were to face it, you would be able to know how to handle it a little bit better. But it is a solid deck, and uh, if you don't pilot it, you should at least test against it. So good luck to everyone, and catch you next week.